We have a crisis of response-ableness. That is our capacity to act in any way we need to act, to respond to the struggle. Our ability to respond to what the time calls of us, and it calls us now to maintain Earth, to keep the land habitable, to ensure future generations can live. Can we respond to the challenge of change? Yes, we can. Dr. King teaches us that good freedom movements with compassionate solutions expose the evils that are deeply rooted in our society and suggest that a radical reconstruction of society itself is the real issue to be faced. We live in a system that designs our behavior to be profitable. If we want to be free from global warming, from pollution, from rising sea levels, extreme weather, and drought, altering the profit-seeking system is our path. We must alter a system where the production and distribution of wealth and consumer goods favors the comfort of a few over the lives of the many. When we boil it down to the individual level, that takes creative conduct. Most of us have been taught that water is a limited resource, and so we shouldn't run the water while we brush our teeth. Most of us have been taught that the plastic that ends up in our landfills is a problem that will last a lot longer than us, and so we should recycle. At the same time, we know that that holds little weight against the amount of water run to grow an almond, or the vast amount of waste in our copper farms. We've never once heard it taught that the production of military arms creates more pollution than the production of consumer goods. The struggle to end climate change is connected to the ongoing struggle against war and violence. Here's what we're going to do. We need a revolution of values. Let's take the initiative to put down our comforts and organize ourselves for legislation, for education, cultural exchange, whatever it's going to take to regain our humanity. Everyone in this room right now represents so many legislative districts. Imagine what we could do if everyone in this room organized 10 others to go to Olympia to testify on legislation in support of salmon stream restoration. Imagine what we could do if everyone brought 5 students with them to Olympia to meet with elected officials, to urge them to support a high-speed train between Spokane and here, so that we can see each other face to face and collaborate while reducing the carbon cost. If we brought along someone else, we would write enough letters to ban plastic packaging, and we would be stronger and more unified because of it. We will not all become chemical scientists who can alter the atmosphere, but we all have a voice. How do we get legislation like this passed? We educate ourselves and we vote. We vote for more representatives that represent us, who see that something must be changed about this climate crisis, and so they move. Only 32% of registered voters in this state of Washington took the responsibility to vote in this April's special election. What example does that set? under the voting age can influence the vote. What would it be like if you took a few students and went door to door in their own neighborhoods, registering people to vote? You would end up with a group full of students that know what hope feels like, who know what it's like to use their voices for something that matters. We would be a stronger community, more oriented towards solutions for the climate crisis, because we've heard and we've seen and we've touched what mobilizing others feels like. We are challenged today to collaborate intergenerationally for a justice that includes environmental justice. We hear the dream, we hear the call to action, and we must respond. We are all interconnected and interdependent. Whatever affects one directly affects all of us indirectly. Dr. King teaches us that we live in a world house where we have to care for each other, because by the time we wake up in the morning, before the time that we go to school or to work in the morning, we're already beholden to half of the world. And the coffee that we drink, and the soap we wash our hands with, and the very clothes on our backs. So let's prove it. Everyone, take a look at an article of clothing that you're wearing today. Take a look at the tag. Have your neighbor look at the tag and see, where is this article of clothing coming from today? Where are all these countries? All right, everyone, take a look in a few moments. Let's see. All right. Let's see. All right, you, ma'am, right there. You. Where does your article of clothing come from today? China. All right. Clothing from China. If you have an article of clothing from China today, clap your hands. Let's get another article. Right there, sir. India. If you have an article of clothing from India, go ahead and give it a round of applause. Woo! All right. Let's get another over there. Vietnam. Everyone else from Vietnam. All right, another back there. USA. All right, USA. If you have an article from USA, all right. All right, one more. Let's get one more. Over to you. Jordan. All right, anyone else from Jordan? All right. Woo. Thank you very much.
We live in a time. Is it on?
Use the
Use the podium.
Yeah, put it up on the.
Thank you. We live in a time where the obstacles in our way are our own habits and conduct that we have submitted to. Short and fast media surrounds our environment and is used solely for entertainment purposes. I imagine that I am not the only one who manages to get easily distracted by the short-term media and platforms that promote more and more one-minute videos that fail to explain any of the sciences adequately. We've created a demand for this type of content, but we are now and have been needing a way to break out of this cycle. This does not mean coming up with new ideas to replace our habits, but coming up and choosing and committing to new habits. It's our dedication to our conduct that determines where we find our consciousness. We study scientific processes in school, but what of our hands? Hands that can dig, plant, water, trim, harvest, and even follow a lesson plan, even enhance it. School gardens have the advantage of teaching conduct, providing an experience where students can witness what's being taught in class, experiment and interact with the plant in a certain type of way, and drawing their own conclusions. It is for this reason our actions don't come from our ideas, but the other way around. Conclusions are drawn from how we sense the world. We're at a point where it's not just our ideas that need changing, but it's our actions that must precede them. Applying this line of thinking and these opportunities for students to pursue demonstrates a desire for change and an effort to improve our morality, helping us better understand where we stand on this earth. Dr. King said, "We have guided missiles and misguided men." His statement rings true today and manages to relate to our climate crisis. Continuing the trend of improving our scientific knowledge and power without improving morality spells destruction. We have the means to combat climate destruction, but currently lack the habits to do so. But we now know the work that must be done to call ourselves well-guided and sustainable. Unsustainable is the way our individualized habits have consumed away at our time. A block has been set out in front of the world, and more generations will come to meet this block. The time is now to move and work around that block and collectively guide us towards a peaceful tomorrow. Thank you.
Our time is marked by a rapidly growing separation and distribution of wealth in the world. The rich are becoming richer, while the poor are becoming poorer. The US is one of the most wealthiest nations in the world, and it is increasingly becoming distant economically than less developed nations. We are filled with a greed, and there is a raging individualism which is practiced at the expense of our communities. We do not protect the ecosystems which took millions of years to perfect in order to keep its wildlife and humanity in order. We allow for the natural balance of species, relationships to be harmed in the process of our profit-making motive. By result, we bring gentrification into the forest and displace the communities and animals present. The preservation and protection of our democracy demands the guardianship of our habitats, ecosystems, and the life that they bring into Mother Earth. We are required as her inhabitants to be of service towards her. Being of service starts with our senses. This is because all learning comes from our sensory experiences. The best place to learn, let me tell you, is from nature itself. Outdoor conduct prepares a human being because of the sensory connections. I want you to picture this with me. Just us students being in nature without someone necessarily trying to teach an intellectual concept awakens the ability to confront the climate crisis. The feeling of soft grass beneath the feet, the smell of fresh pine cones, hearing the gushing rush of water, and tasting nature's air gives us important lessons about the sacredness of our Mother Nature. It allows us to draw conclusions about respect, gratitude, and our social responsibility towards all life. To serve is to confront the root of the problem so that its symptoms, as my brother David said on the video, to not grow into weeds. These are the truths we must be armed with if we are going to be soldiers defending our earth. So, get out into nature if we want to draw the connection between the dots and bring faith back into our democracy. Our nation is also very sick. We live with a very deadly illness that has convinced our negative spirit into thinking that we are better than everybody else. We believe that our ideas and perspectives and practices are superior to those of people from around the world. We shame others, and we do not hold ourselves accountable on the stage of international solidarity. We have created the cure to some of man's greatest problems, but we have yet to live together as brothers and sisters. Combating the climate crisis requires our consciousness to agree with the truth that the crisis we are facing within the United States is just not within our borders. Currently, 1/3 of Pakistan, my home, is submerged underwater. Bridges, homes, and lands used for farming are destroyed and damaged. Families don't have safe drinking water. Children are suffering against disease and hunger, while many are already dead. Climate change has increased the severity of events like floods and fires, accelerated the timeline for many disasters around the globe. Think about Afghanistan living through droughts, Haiti losing 98% of its forests, and Sudan, which will soon become inhabitable due to the increasing temperatures. Though there are tragedies because of climate change, there are also wonderful answers that are hidden from us. These places, these people, and their stories are not as far away as we let them become. To grasp these solutions on how people from around the globe are choosing to combat climate change, we must extend our humility, our patience and curiosity to ask, what can I learn from you? Imagine if at least one classroom in every school in the state of Washington took on a letter writing project from students from other countries that were severely impacted by climate change. Students would learn and understand from people around the world how the country of Costa Rica utilizes almost 99% of renewable energy, or that Cuba uses small-scale farms to feed their entire city, and that Africa is using clothes to produce through recycled fabrics. These stories tell the world what is possible. It is the role of the rest of us to help bring a more equitable, reciprocal, and sustainable vision to fruition in our own communities. Such a task, perhaps the most profound challenge of our time, one that will define generations and generations to come, is in our hands. Thank you.
Everyone is responsible for the climate crisis. In our hyper-individualistic economy, we often lose sight of that. Maybe we invested in something like an electric car or a reusable water bottle, but the freeway we drive on is still filled with gas and diesel-powered vehicles. To remedy this issue, we must instead push for solutions that change more than the kind of vehicle that we drive. For electric cars are still charged with electricity from high emission sources in many places. And the factory from which it was made still contributes greatly still to air pollution. We can instead push for accessible electric transit that is sourced from clean, renewable energy, cutting down on all of our emissions and gas use. The first thing that many of us do to solve the climate crisis is to invest our dollars. We consume more products with sustainable labels because buying is what we're familiar with. Consumerism is what we're comfortable with. It's an action that was bred to be profitable to the very companies that contribute most to pollution of all kinds. Our addiction to comfort has made it so that we are crippling our own ability to reach out to others and band together to contribute to legislation to make big changes to the companies that we want to see. We must all put down something, whether it's consumerism or individualism, cynicism, anger, fear, to make personal and legislative changes that matter. While we can all contribute to bettering our community's environmental impact by sacrificing overbuying and commuting to work with bikes or public transportation, it is only when we put the environment in our consciousness and participate in collective civic engagement that we will be able to see a meaningful change. Thank you.
In order to protect our planet, we must protect and promote our democracy. Dr. King teaches us about the three triplets of injustice, and these continue to fuel the climate crisis all around us. The first one being materialism. As Andre just mentioned, we are trained to be consumers. We all carry our devices and we go on our Facebooks and Instagrams and find ourselves falling victims to flashy trends and flashy products. Next thing you know, we're doing the repeated habit of buying a product without thinking once or twice about the impact that it is having on our climate. The second one is militarism. The enormous amounts of fossil fuels that our military uses that is largely contributing to global warming. And we don't hear that in our classrooms. The third one is racism. We see it in research and data that shows that marginalized communities have and will continue to feel the stings of climate change the most. Not having access to clean water, not having access to clean air. The list goes on and it will continue going on as long as we feel like we're not responsible. As long as we continue to feel like someone else is going to handle the problem. We're taught that human nature is to be violent, to hurt others, and to take for ourselves. And the truth is, human nature is to nurture, to love, to care, and to belong. Which is why we must have empathy for our planet and for our people. Stand in solidarity with our brothers and our sisters through the celebration of life and the acknowledgement of loss. That is the foundation we must stand on to build, not a foundation of greed and hatred. And when we can recognize the human in one another, we can recognize that the weight is on our shoulders to make a change. We are responsible. The oceans dying are our oceans. The families' homes being flooded are our families. The children being left without food or home stability are our children. The firestorms that are whirling up and destroying everything that comes across its path are our firestorms, which is why we are responsible. And climate change is bigger than just climate change. It's a system of neglect and systems of oppression. And that's a narrative we must educate and teach in our classrooms, in our workplaces, in our communities. And not just to teach, but use it as a tool to empower others
today I was able to see a few presentations on how empowering it is to get involved, to be able to work with your classmates and build on a project that helps you come together, but also helps you feel like you're being listened to. And that's something that we need to practice in our country. And we need to get people to do something. As Finn mentioned, you don't need to know the science, all the science and specifics of climate change. It starts with being able to recognize the issue and then bringing others to do something about it. And continuing to strive to make an impactful change, and we do that by staying awake. Many times we find ourselves asleep in moments when change is needed the most. We find ourselves comfortable in our own homes and not really doing much to challenge our own comfortability. It's more to attack this climate crisis, it's going to take more than being comfortable. It's more than feeling good about yourself because you're reducing energy and recycling in your own homes. And while that is a step forward, it's not enough to tackle this issue that's embedded in many, many systems of oppression. It's going to take direct action. It's going to take us standing up and using our voices. We need to utilize our cultural power and empower those around us and recognize that your voice does matter. And your voice is capable of planting seeds in the hearts of others and those around you to get up and do something with you. We must utilize our political power, get others to go to the legislature, to testify, to vote, and to push policy that is positive and that enforces a change that is moving forward. And that's because we have the right to a good life, the right of a quality life that is clean, that is safe, and that continues growing. We have the right to clean air, the right to thrive, and the right to grow. Science actually shows that when you feel good about a place that you're living in, your mental health increases a lot. And so we have the right to feel good about ourselves and our planet. How do we do this? We have to start by confronting our fears, our truths, and behaviors that have created our climate crisis. Thank you.
We would like to welcome any comments and questions. Are there any questions?
How would you suggest getting other students engaged in this work and getting passionate about it and starting a program within, say, a different school district?
Well, a lot of us here, when we started in this program at the Institute for Community Leadership, we didn't even know what civic engagement meant. And getting involved to being able to recognize our own power and our ability to do something, and then being able to connect our own life experiences, our own culture to our curriculum. And many times it feels like that's divided. Our curriculum isn't connected to our own lives. And so to get other students engaged and how we got engaged is through being able to have people who back you up and support you and are able to listen to you and being able to push you to be uncomfortable. And so we like to say it's self-transformation through civic participation. And that's how real change is made, and that's how you get students to be involved. Because being involved is so beautiful because it helps you feel good about yourself and it's helping those around you to become involved.
I think there was one more. Yeah, Brad.
Okay, oh yes. Could you share at all, like, what is your program? Like, what, you were so inspiring and your voices are so powerful. And I guess I'm curious how you got to that spot. What's involved in making
Thank you for the question. So we are the Institute for Community Leadership, and a majority of our students, the one sitting up here as well, go through a vetting process where they are nominated by teachers, community leaders, and elected officials that see a spark and a thirst for justice within them. When people ask the question of how did you get here, how did you get so inspiring, our director, Dr. Wilson, likes to explains that all of us are not unique. We come from very similar experiences of pain and places where we've been put back and forth between our nobler and less nobler versions of ourselves. What makes, all of us inspiring is the ability and the coaching that it took from the people around us, our elders and our mentors, to be of service to others. And that's an inspiring thing to do in general.
Thank you all again, and we're going to wrap up pretty quickly, so if you stick around, I bet we get to have a couple more conversations with you and some people might want to check in. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you.